Okay, so we're going to go through the 5-step process of graphing a trig function. So first you want to identify the parent function, which is, in this case, y equals the sine of x. In your mind, you kind of want to remember that the sine graph starts at 0, goes up to 1, goes back down to 0, goes down to -1, and 1 period, then ends back at 2 pi. So it goes up like this, down like this, and then back up. But our 5-step process we're going to do is first we're going to write down all the information we need. So we need our amplitude. Our amplitude is our A value right here, which is 3, okay? That is the distance from the midline, okay? The next thing we write down is our period. Now, if there's a number in front of x, then you actually have to factor that out, okay? But in this case, there isn't one. There's the number 1, so we don't have to factor it out. The number that's in front of x is b. To find the new period, you would do 2 pi over b. So in this case, it would be just 2 pi over 1, which is 2 pi. Okay? So our period is 2 pi. Then, because the graph has 4 different parts to it, 4 quarters, if I think about it like this is 1 quarter, this is 2 quarters, 3 quarters, 4 quarters. Think about the unit circle going around 1 full rotation. You've gone through 4 quarters of the graph. We find our quarter period. That's going to help us graph this function easily. So to find our quarter period, we multiply the new period by 1/4. That would give me 2 pi over 4, which is pi over 2. So that is my quarter period. The next thing I need, the 4th thing, is my phase shift. My phase shift is this C right here, and it's always going to be in the opposite direction. So my phase shift is pi over 6. So right pi over 6. I'll put right just to make it clear. And then the last thing I do is get my vertical shift, okay? So my vertical shift is up 2. All right. Then the only other thing that I ask you to do to make this easy for yourself is to make sure the quarter period and the phase shift have the same denominator. So to make the quarter period have the same denominator as the phase shift, we'd have to multiply it by 3 over 3 to get 3 pi over 6. Okay? Does that make sense? You with me? Yeah. Okay. So my phase shift is my starting point. I want you to think of it as your starting point. And this is your increments. Okay? All right, so now I'm ready to graph everything. So I'm going to take all this information. I'm going to actually move this up just a little bit so I have some room. Okay. Now, I'm going to start with my midline, okay? So my midline is my vertical shift. So we know that that point 0 has been shifted up 2. So we go to our midline. And I put a dotted line in my midline. Just like that, okay? So I've taken care of my vertical shift. Then I go to my amplitude. From my midline, I'm going to go up 3. Let me fix this so I have a little bit more room here. I go up 3. So up 3 from 2. 1, 2, 3. And down 3, which would be 1, 2, and then 3. Okay? So if I go up from 2, I go up 3. I'm at 2, 3, 4, 5. And down here, I'd be at -1. Okay? So remember, you're going up 3 and down 3. Okay? And so that is my amplitude. All right, period I don't graph because I graph my quarter period. But first I want to put in my starting point. So I'm going to put in pi over 6. Okay? Now every increment is going to be 3 pi over 6. Okay? So I need to add 3 pi over 6 to pi over 6. So here's 1, 2, 3 pi over 6, which actually puts me at 4 pi over 6. Okay? And then 5, 6, so 1, 2, 3, so 7 pi over 6. And then 1, 2, 3, which would be 10 pi over 6. And let me just move a little bit. Hold on. Why can't I? Hold on a second. Actually, let me move it. Can I move the whole? Oh, darn it. Let me move it a little bit this way. So 10 pi over 6. So the next one, I don't know why I can't shift it over. Let me try to do it this way. Okay, that gives me a little more room. So then the next one would be 13 pi over 6. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so I have 1, 2, 3. I have 4 quarters. All right, so now I go back to the original graph to see what I'm doing. So that starting point of 0, I start now at the midline. So I start at the midline at pi over 6. My next change is at the next quarter period. So I'm going to get up to 5 at 4 pi over 6. I'm going to turn back around and go down back to my midline. So I will be at my midline at 7 pi over 6. I'm going to go down to that -1 at 10 pi over 6. And I'm going to go back up to my midline at 13 pi over 6. So now we have graphed one period of your graph. And if you want to go in either direction, more periods, all you have to do is either keep going up by the increment or down by the increment. Now, you could, at this point, if you wanted, simplify any of the fractions that can be simplified. We know that 4 pi over 6 is 2 pi over 3. And we know that 10 pi over 6 would be 5 pi over 3. So you could simplify those if you'd like to. All right, and hopefully that was a helpful video. Have a great day.